This is the Bros Ceremony,
Your journey's about to begin.
recapping the week that was in Bachelor Nation and previewing what's to come in the next episode with some special betting odds.
Everyone can't wait to find out what happens next week.
Here are your hosts, Michael the Hound Dog Harrison and Adam Scully.
Will you accept this rose?
Will you accept this rose?
Will you accept this rose?
Hello, friends, and welcome to episode 3 of the Bros Ceremony podcast. Adam Scully alongside Michael the Hound Dog Harrison. And Hound Dog, we teased it last week, the Bachelorette doubleheader, Monday, Tuesday. You just love to see that, and we saw 2 great episodes, didn't we?
Interesting you say great episodes, Adam, because as we get to this close to the end of the season, oftentimes I feel like the episodes drag on a little bit where you're just like, okay, like they were pretty good, interesting. The men tell all not as crazy as usual, I guess because the crowd wasn't there. So usually when they're there, they groan and do, oh my God, all this stuff or whatever. So with the lack of that, it wasn't as crazy as usual. But no, it still was interesting. We'll get to it in a bit, of course, but the hometown dates were good, but unfortunately they lacked having a crazy family member to piss everyone off. I really, really was upset about that.
Yeah, there was no real, not any real drama on the hometown dates. I'm surprised they actually brought the family members in. They had to quarantine, obviously, which was something in itself, but we'll get to that a little later in the show. We have to thank our many thousands of fans again, following us on Instagram, on Twitter, subscribing to us on YouTube. We're 2 episodes in. It's been a fun journey thus far on the Bros Ceremony.
I'm vulnerable, Adam.
You are very vulnerable. Yes, Tayshia, Hound Dog Harrison, very vulnerable. But let's get into it. We have a very exciting announcement that's coming up very shortly on the podcast. But first, as last Monday's episode began, things kicked off with the return of Uncle Chris Harrison.
I just love to see him back. It's a calming presence. He's such a professional. He's an amazing broadcaster, of course, because he's related to me, obviously. And it was so nice to see him back in the Bachelor realm and talking about his son and bragging some more, which is hilarious. And so I guess, yeah, he would refresh my memory. I watched these episodes, and it's just okay, what exactly happened? But yeah, he gave the date card to Blake, basically, and Riley and Blake were at the forefront of the early part of this episode.
Yeah, Riley and Blake were at the forefront, starting with Blake, who had that one-on-one. Now, we knew in last week's episode he was getting the one-on-one. And Hound Dog, to put it bluntly, the one-on-one was strange.
Well, we knew, remember last episode where I was trying to avoid telling people the spoilers of who was going to be gone. We knew going into the episode that Blake was already gone because he was one of 2 people, including Noah, that were in the preview that showed they were in the mental hall. So it's like, we already know he lost. I don't understand why the Bachelor is like, I guess the thought process is they're going to watch anyway. We might as well spoil it. Not so much with Blake, I think, but more so with Noah. Like, oh, that's going to be some drama and we don't care. People are going to watch anyway. But yeah, going into that date, unfortunately, I wasn't invested in it because I knew Blake was gone. But yeah, he had, my goodness, if I was a part of this date, I can't even imagine what I would have done. Yeah, there was crystals, they had this robe, they had some woman spouting off some nonsense to them. It was just a bizarre scene.
It was a very bizarre scene. Tayshia emotionally sent him home after that and then sort of gathered the guys around together, took Riley aside, sent him home. Really interesting turn of events that happened there. But you mentioned Blake and how strange the date was. And as a viewer, you're sitting at home thinking, man, like, imagine being in his shoes, how strange that will feel. I mentioned at the start of the show, we have a very exciting announcement, and that is Blake Moynes joining us here on the Bros Ceremony, where we'll discuss that date and much more.
Cheers to the first group date.
And we're pleased to welcome Blake Moynes from Bachelorette Season 16. Blake, welcome to the show. Good to have you with us.
Thanks for having me.
So how much has your life changed since going on The Bachelorette?
I mean, I would just say mostly my social media, and people now recognize me a little bit more, even sometimes through a mask when I go out to the grocery store or whatever. But Nothing's really changed so much yet. You know, I made it decently far so people know who I am, but not a lot's changed other than that.
And when going back to the start of the season when you were with Claire, you guys had the script dodgeball game,
Yeah.
and your team lost, but then you decided to go and see her, and the guys were upset about that. How pissed were they that you did that, or were they just pissed that they thought that you did it and they didn't?
I think it's a combination of both things, to be honest. You know, it's tough because, you know, up until that point, I had way more time with the guys in the house than I did with the lead. So you start to form relationships, right? And a lot of the guys in the house, you know, talk about, you know, how they love all the relationships they're forming with the guys, all those kinds of things. So all of a sudden, when they think you're a beauty, and it's all locker room talk and stuff for the most part, where you hang around these guys, right? So you start to develop good friendships. And then all of a sudden, when you show up to like steal time from them, I remember some of the guys were like, dude, what are you doing here? And I'm like, because they don't expect it, right? Because the day before we were all buddy and everything's great. So it was tough because, like, you know, I was like growing up playing hockey and stuff, like, was that bros before, right? So you can't have that mentality. You can't have that mentality there. And so, you know, it definitely rubs some guys the wrong way. But at the same time, like, we all recognize why we're here. So you really can't be that mad. Have you ever watched any seasons before? Like, you know how this works. So the other thing too is like, I pulled the guys aside the next day, had one-on-one talk with them and be like, listen, I know you didn't like that, but like it had to be done. So it is what it is.
And speaking of those fellow contestants you have, what are some of the guys that you love that you still keep in contact with today?
Yeah, so I'd say the guys that probably talk to the most would be Jason. So Jason and I kind of clicked just because he was probably the only guy that connected with Claire like I did in a way, and then he ended up leaving before Tayshia came on the season. So him, I talked to Ed. Ed is actually hilarious. He doesn't get enough for that. Who else? Like we have a group chat going, right? So from time to time, like you'll have like private conversations with some of these guys just on whatever's going on out there in the Bachelor Nation world. But for the most part, we have a big group chat. Everyone gets along great. This thing, you kind of bounce ideas and questions off certain guys just based off things that have happened. And when you start watching things back, you're like, what were you thinking in that moment? Like, cause you don't know, you don't see the things all of a sudden, like, dude, as if you said that. Like, you know, you're just kind of like jabs here and there, texts, FaceTimes, things like that. Just keeping up on what's going on.
So you mentioned Ed there. There was a great point earlier in the season when he was looking for Tayshia. He ended up in Chris Harrison's loft or room and had a bottle of vino with him. Were you jealous of that? And how awesome is Chris Harrison?
Yeah, he's a beauty. He's like the most easygoing guy. And, you know, the thing is, too, it surprised me the most. I mean, yes, he's been doing this for so long, but he never had to, like, rerun through anything. Like, he is such a professional. And he just made you feel super comfortable, even though everyone comes to the season like, oh, my God, I'm probably going to meet Chris Harrison. That guy's like a legend. He doesn't make you feel, like, belittled or any way in any he's super, super an awesome guy. And that whole scene with Ed was funny. He told me after that it all happened, not during the season, but after, he's like, there's something coming up that no one knows. It should be super funny. I ended up going and meeting Chris Harrison in the middle of the night. And he's like, you'll see. I'm like, yeah, it was great.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
No, for you, obviously there was Claire started the season. Tayshia came in, as Chris Harrison said, the most dramatic season of Bachelor history. But what was that like being on the show, you know, having one Bachelorette being in lockdown for 4 months and then she was gone 10 days later or whatever it was, and Tayshia came in?
Yeah, it was tough because, like, you just built up who was going to be for 4 months. And especially for me, you know, I've talked on some other interviews and things where, like, I convinced myself that it was going to be her. So all of a sudden when, you know, I built up it was going to be her for 4 months. I get there, then we clicked. I'm like, this is going exactly how I wanted it to. Like, this is great. Like, you just felt good about it. And although, like, the actual connection didn't feel amazing, like, you're making steps and you're just like, it's hard because when you're on a show and you've never done it before, you don't know if the feeling that you're feeling is like the right one. Is it just because like the camera's here? Does it feel weird or tense because it's not natural. And so it was tough because you're just kind of comparing where you are in your relationship by listening to other guys talk about where they are in their relationships, because she doesn't ever really tell you that, right? So because because no one was really clicking with her, I thought things were going great. And I'm like, this is awesome. This is everything I could think that could happen in the last 4 months. I was convincing myself it's working out. And then all of a sudden she comes in out of nowhere and drops the bomb. And I'm like, you saw me. I was not impressed at all. And then, I didn't know what was going to happen next. I knew someone was going to come in. I didn't know if it was going to be a Bachelor in Paradise type thing. I didn't know if it was going to be one lead. Tayshia came in, but she made it super easy to move on from that. I don't know if anyone could have pulled it off like Tayshia did, but she has something about her that everyone gravitated to.
And you mentioned Tayshia. How was that one-on-one day with her? It just seemed like bizarre with the crystals and the disrobing, and I can only picture myself in that moment. I'd be like, "Oh my god."
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot for a first date for sure, especially when there's like so much pressure on the date. It was nice that the date was as deep as it was because we needed to like connect big time and quickly for me to be able to potentially get to the hometowns. But at the same time, to have that first one-on-one and to be something so deep was tough. I think for the first date, you want something a little bit more loose, a little bit more fun, where you're not just like diving into like feelings and like all those things like hard like that. It was a little awkward. It wasn't my thing at all, but I knew it was for her as we were walking up and we saw her name was Geeta. So we saw Geeta. She was saying like, this is like my type of thing. I like this stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, I have to dive in now. I have to dive in and like be fully here for her. And get like, the thing too is on a date like that, if you're not in the right mindset and you're negative or you're being weird about it, you're done from the start. So I just dove in and it ended up being okay at the end. Well, the date went okay. I thought we did well, but apparently she didn't. So, yeah.
Disappointing. Yeah. What was your favorite moment of the season that didn't make it to air?
That didn't make it to air. There was. This is a really embarrassing moment.
Nice.
There was a time in the pool, and at the pool date before the speedo date, and. They brought out a football, and some of us were tossing around a football and stuff. And the ball came to me, and I hadn't thrown the ball yet. And first off, like I'm not a football guy. Like I used to play in high school, but like I was on the line, so like I don't toss the ball very much. Anyways, the ball came to me, and Zaxi jumped out of the pool, and he's like, "I'm gonna jump through the air. I want you to throw it to me in midair and catch it." And I don't know what happened, but like I went to throw it. It slipped out of my hands and it just like went 4 feet in front of me right into the pool. And everyone was like laughing. Tayshia's like, give me the ball. I throw her the ball. She's like, Zach, go up there again. Perfect spiral, hits him midair. I'm like, oh my God. I was like, listen, I play hockey. Like I'm Canada. The football thing's not for me. I'm so glad I didn't make it there because my buddies would have killed me for that.
That's amazing. We're in conversation here with Blake Moynes from The Bachelorette. Now you mentioned being in Speedos, going in the pool. Paradise, who knows? Hopefully it comes back next summer. Hopefully the world is closer to back to normal. What do you think of your odds of being on Paradise?
Yeah, I mean, you would think I'd have a chance of probably making it there. At the same time, we'll see. It's so far away, right? If it aired in the same time, which is typically in the summer, it's 5-6 months away or so. So, like I've said, I'll be actively dating still. I went on the show trying to find somebody, so I'm not going to wait till Paradise to see if I can find someone there. It would be a very, very cool experience, but I say it's probably 50-50. There's 5-6 months. I know I'll actively be dating in that time probably, and so we'll see if I make it to the beach. I know a lot of people want to see me there. Yeah, we'll just have to wait and see.
That'd be great. As someone who would love to be on the show myself, I'm curious about how you got on. Did you apply or did someone nominate you?
Yeah. So I play in a men's league, hockey league in Burlington, and I don't know, we play every Thursday night or whatever. And in the summer, it was last summer. I'm one of the only guys remaining that doesn't have a girlfriend, not engaged, not living with a girlfriend. And so all the buddies would come to me about like, what's going on in your life? Like, who are you dating? Anybody? And I was like the story guy for the most part for a long time. And then like, well, you're so weird. Like you don't care what anyone thinks. You're down for any type of adventure. Why don't you go on like one of those dating shows? And I was like, I don't know if that's for me. I went home that night though, and I sent in just a photo, and like I didn't even finish the application. I sent in just the first paragraph because I realized it was the US show. I'm like, there's no way I'm getting on this thing. I sent it in, and then, it was like 3 months later, I randomly got a call, and I called my mom right away. I'm like, is this something I want to do? She's like, yes, absolutely, you gotta go for it. And then it just spiraled, and then yeah, here we are, right? And like I've heard that this happens to everybody. No one really expects it. It just happens when you least expect it. So
That's awesome, man. Okay, we got a couple more rapid fire questions before we let you go. We're both avid fans of the show, clearly. Rose ceremonies. How long is the average rose ceremony in real time?
yeah, it varied, to be honest with you. It honestly seems like you're standing there forever just because it's so tense. Like you can like hear everyone's heartbeat in the room. They're really long in the beginning. That first night was forever, right? When there's 31 guys there. As it dwindles down, it's nicer. And in the beginning too, like it takes longer for the lead to memorize everybody's name and stuff. So it does take long. I don't know how long it would be, but I know that we set the record that first night for the longest first night of a season ever, just because of the situation we were in.
Well, it's funny. It's funny you mentioned the first night. Like we've seen in past seasons where obviously it starts at night, and then when people leave, their end interviews are in broad daylight. Like, are you guys going till 9 or 10 or 11 in the morning?
Yes, yeah. Well, we were taking our like group photo like at that time somewhere in the morning, and the sun was coming up, and everyone started to beat sweat. It was a long night. There's a lot of drinks, and a lot of just like chaos. And that first night is never one that would ever be forgotten. That's for sure.
I'm sure you get asked this one a lot. As someone who is really, really awful at art, I would have passed it off as, oh no, I meant to do something else. But when you made the claymation penis, what was that one? I would have passed it off as, oops, no, I meant to do something.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing, right? On the TV, it looks like I just kind of like, oh, look at me, like I'm a goofball in a way, which in a way it's like, okay, when I was building it, I was like, hey, this probably might not come across the greatest, but my explanation hopefully like settles this a little bit. I basically just talked about, I could have been like Spencer and made like a pizza, but like, okay, I do this once. I'm going to like, if we're going to do this, let's do this. So, I want to talk about the difference between just physical sex and sex and love, and how sex and love is something I've been missing for 2 years since I broke up with my ex. And like, that's something I've been missing in my life. And like having that connection, that passion with somebody, and not just like physical sex, basically. I explained it a little bit better, I think, when I was there. It's not a comfortable thing to talk about, but that's again why I decided to bring that topic up. Is it's a little uncomfortable for a lot of people, and so I wanted to be out there, right? Like she asked, and like talk about things that are meaningful and deep, and although it's a little risky to talk about because it's not a liked topic by everybody, and it makes some people awkward. It's something that's true. I think it's very true. So that's what I talked about. It was more serious than what it looked like, but it was also very loose and fun too. So it wasn't like it was portrayed completely wrong. A lot of the guys were dying laughing at it, but there was a backup with a good explanation, I thought, anyways.
Going back to when Claire was on the season, how quickly did you guys know, like, this Dale guy is he's probably he's won or hurt? Like, how quickly did you guys know that?
Yeah, so, well, I would say, so you guys, I was not involved in, because there was that time, I don't know, it was episode like 4, where the guys were talking about she's fallen in love with Dale, they're gone, they're going to leave today, all this stuff, and I was like, there's no way that this has happened. There's no way just because there's a combination of things, right? There was the combination of it being such a short amount of time. There's a combination of that, plus I like felt, because I never saw them getting to like doing what they were doing, I was never privy to see like them connect in any way. So again, I'm just comparing. I'm be like, well, it seems like it's only me, Jason, and Dale that are really getting anywhere. The rest of the guys don't know anything. If they're not connecting, of course they're going to talk like this and see like Dale's gone. But they also haven't seen me connect. They haven't seen me kiss her. They haven't seen me do these things. I'm like, so I just stopped listening to them. I'm like, you guys don't know. You're speaking for yourselves. Like, I'm connecting at least a little bit. There's got to be something there. So when she came in, I was just, you saw me. I was just like, whoa. My face was just like, I couldn't. I was like, there's no way I did all this and convince myself. Like, you haven't given me the time to like show you myself yet. And that was the roughest part, because it felt like she was making a decision without giving anyone a chance. And it would have been nicer if we had like a one-on-one where she fully knew that what she was getting out of me and was like, no, I know this is for sure isn't him. But to not get a one-on-one and be sent home after knowing how much I put into that, invested in her, and she didn't know that, that's what sucked.
Obviously, a crucial point of the Bachelorette is the dates. But if you're not on a one-on-one or a group date, what are you doing all day? Like, are you working out, or are you GTLing? Are you tanning? What are you doing all day?
Yeah. So when you're on the date, it's basically just you're hanging out with the guys. There's just it's like a job, right? So in a way, you're constantly being filmed and interviewed, just the typical stuff, all those like ITMs and stuff that you see is basically what we do all day. And you eat and hang out, and it's a good time. You just never know when Chris Harrison's going to pop in, and then all of a sudden, like, everyone's stressing out again about something. But that's the thing, is like, you don't really have a lot of time to relax. I mean, you do, but it's like you're on the Bachelorette, so you're like just waiting to watch. Like, when is someone going to come in and tell me something's going to blow things up? Like, you just never knew that, right? And that's what kept you on your toes all the time. And through the first part of the season, especially with Claire, when there's so much chaos. Mm-hmm. Oh, it was a nightmare for that. Things started to cool down a little bit with Tayshia, but I was always ready for like the next crazy wave to come in of crazy things.
Now, you mentioned hockey earlier in the interview, that you played beer league. I was doing a little research before the interview. Went on Elite Prospects. I played hockey myself, so I went through Elite Prospects. You spent some time playing in the BC IHL with Thompson River University.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is a comeback now in the works?
No chance. That was random. I was a walk-on to that team. I played AAA Burlington growing up with the Eagles, and I was a 90, so I was in the same age group of like Stamkos and all those guys, and we were always a top 10 team in North America. So I remember playing against all those guys. But I stepped away from that after drafter. When I didn't get drafted to the OHL, I was like pissed. Well, I'm a big boy. Why don't I try football? So I played football for a couple of years. I shattered my ankle playing football, and so I could never play football again. It was like I was hung up for a whole year, basically in grade 12. I thought hockey was done. I thought everything was done. But I went to this university when I was like 22, and I watched some YouTube clips on the team. And I was like, I'll see walk out and see if I can make the team. And there's no way I was going to make the team based on like my skating and stuff at the time. But the only reason I was really good anyways was just because like we don't play like this anymore, but I was never a finesse guy. I was just, Scott Stevens was my idol, and I was a big boy, so I just like the whole trolley track thing was like what I was known for basically. And so I knew I was like, I had to go onto this ice as a walk-on. No one's gonna know I'm gonna do this. I just gotta start laying guys out. And so I stepped on the ice. That's what I did for the first 2 tryouts. The GM pulled me aside. He's like, listen, I can tell your skating's a little messed up right now with the ankle and that stuff, but if you can do that, we'll sign you on. And I signed on and ended up making my way on the team and playing a decent amount of games. And it was a ton of fun. It was great because I never thought I'd play again. And then I got the opportunity to.
That's awesome. Well, Blake, really appreciate your time today. Good luck, maybe in a potential comeback, and who knows, maybe we'll see you later this year in Paradise. Thanks for joining us.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, guys.
Thanks.
Ladies, gentlemen, it's the final rose tonight.
Hound Dog, amazing to have Blake on the show, a fellow Canuck like us just up the road. Awesome to have Blake on the show. Any major takeaways from the interview with Blake?
Well, first and foremost, I would just say he was an absolute Butron. Like right away, he was just a game for – I'm sure he's done so many of these – actually, no, maybe I should rephrase that. He's done no other of these podcasts. We're the only podcast in the entire Bachelor universe that he did, of course. But no, he was game to talk anything, and he was a really, really, really great guy. I thought he was great. He had some really interesting points about it, especially with the moment that didn't make it to air with the football, and it would have been a great blooper. Too bad that didn't show up in the bloopers at the end of the Men Tell All, because that could have been something. But no, he was outstanding. Really, I know I always joke about it, but like, yeah, his walls were down. He was very vulnerable with us, which was pretty cool.
It was awesome, and thanks to those who helped us set up that interview with Blake. Looking forward to having many other cast members of The Bachelorette, Uncle Harrison. Maybe Tayshia will join us for a little recap of the season. Maybe we'll see that happen, but you mentioned the Men Tell All. We're going to get to that shortly as well, because the bloopers were not great, but we'll get into that a little later.
Interesting.
Yes. Not so good. They were kind of, they piped him up. They always do. And I don't know, it wasn't very good. Anyway, so let's get back to where we were. So Blake and Riley gone. Tayshia sent them home to was supposed to be the cocktail party where the guys are all sitting around. We teased it last week. Bennett professed his love to Tayshia. The boys didn't know that. They're all sitting around waiting. Bennett comes walking in. And as he said, the guys looked like they'd seen a ghost.
It was just so funny. He comes in and like, "Hey boys, what's up?" And then he like hits Zach on the shoulder, like, "Hey, what's up, bud?" And Zach's like, "Why are you touching me?" Yeah, I just love like the drama of them just like, "Oh God, this guy's back" or whatever. Like, but yeah, he pretty much didn't stand a chance really. But it was good for drama for a little bit more. I did feel it was a little bit. I would have thought it would have been earlier in the episode they would have shown him coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Like initially, like the first like 5 minutes. Then there would have been a bit more time to have some drama there. It was almost like, oh right, Ben's coming back. I kind of had that thought a little bit. But,
yeah, I'm with you there too. And one thing that Tayshia did that I don't know, I wasn't the biggest fan of that late in the game. No cocktail party where Uncle Chris Harrison came in and said, "Tayshia, she's following her heart. She knows what she wants to do." That late in the game, what were your thoughts on the no cocktail party?
Well, to go a bit before that, when she got rid of Blake. A couple moments from that date that I want to mention, then we'll talk about the cocktail party. I just thought it was hilarious, and I love Blake. Like I said, he was an amazing guest for our podcast, and I'm sure we'll have 2,718 more guests. Every single episode we'll have. I'm assuming we're going to do this for another like 30 years.
Oh yeah, minimum.
Clearly, I love that one of his lines was, "This is literally a do or die date." He said, "Literally a do or die date," which I thought was amazing. As we saw, he didn't win the date, but he didn't die, so it wasn't quite literally the do or die date. But I thought that was hilarious. But Tayshia during that date, she kept saying like, "I just don't know if I can get there. I'm just not sure if I can get there." You do know if you can get there. It didn't work. You didn't like him. You sent him home. What do you mean you don't know if you can get there? You do know you can get there, and you couldn't get there. So that whole date, I'm just like, no, like stop like mincing words here. For whatever reason, you don't feel it, and that's fine.
That's fine.
It's fine. But the whole like, I don't know if I can get there, or like, I just don't know if we have enough time. It just felt like kind of a little bit of a cop-out, if I'm honest with you. And I'm sorry, Tayshia. Maybe you won't get her as a guest now that I've called her out.
I mean, let's go back to Blake's interview here briefly. You mentioned, or you asked him, how did you apply to get on the show? So I think we'll reach out to the Bros Ceremony Nation, and they can help us get you a video, make you a video, and we'll just talk with Uncle Chris Harrison. We'll talk with the producers, and we'll get you on the show.
Do you think, though, that because they see the last name Harrison, that they would think it's nepotism and like, oh, it's obviously his nephew or son or whatever? Do you think I would be immediately set up to fail, that I would have no chance to be on the show?
I think that would help you. I think that would help you for sure.
You think it would help me?
I do.
Okay.
It would also help. I got to say, 3 episodes in, you've rocked some different hairstyles here. And I think if you continue to rock the Dwight Schrute sort of center part like you're currently doing, I think it looks good.
I can't do it. It shows how much I've been going outside of working in Toronto here the last month or two. Yesterday, I was like, oh my God, my hair is way too long. I need to get a haircut big time. So I called the barbershop I've been using for like 12 years. No answer for like 5-6 times in a row. I'm like, oh, maybe the phone's down or something. Then I went there, completely boarded up. I was like, whoa. And then, of course, it clued into me. Oh, my God, of course. Hairdressers are closed right now. So shows how little I actually go out normally and do any shopping or anything of that sort. I had no idea. So, yeah, you're stuck with this hairstyle, I guess, for the foreseeable future, unfortunately.
I love it. And, there's some very fascinating hairstyles on this season of The Bachelor. That wasn't a good segue. I tried. It was a bit of a reach. I tried.
You know what? I like it, Adam. I'm going to go with it. It's good.
I tried. So speaking of hairstyles, so Bennett and Noah go home.
Yes.
And then we go to the Men Tell All last Monday. Obviously, no fans or patrons, if you will, watching in attendance. A couple of things stood out to me before I ask your opinion here. Some guys were there.
Yes, the one I thought the most was Chasen. I thought would have been there. Is that your guy? Yeah. I
was going to say, because they kept asking Ed about the hatred between Ed and Chasen, and so he wasn't there.
Yeah, that was weird. I'm sure I think there was a couple other guys that I noted that weren't there, but they don't spring to mind. Were there other ones that you were thinking of that weren't there?
He was the number one guy. There were a couple other faces that I can't put a name to at this moment.
I thought they were going to talk to Jason a bit more. Sorry to interrupt. I thought they were going to talk to him about how he was in love with Claire, and then he decided to leave when Tayshia came onto the show. I thought they would have a brief segment talking about how Jason, because he seemed like a cool guy, and just be like, how are you doing after that? Blah, blah, blah. Like, that doesn't happen very often with our show, and the guy just decides to leave home. Leave to go home. I thought they were going to talk to him, but they largely ignored him, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree. That was a little interesting. Something else that I found from the Men Tell All, the Bennett-Noah feud. Do they really hate each other? It seemed kind of forced.
Yeah, no, they definitely do. I think they both know for sure, like, where their bread is buttered on that one. They might have had a bit of a rivalry during the season, of course. I can understand that, obviously. But now that I don't know how long it's been, probably like 5-6 months since. I think they know to try to push each other's buttons for ratings or whatever. It's a good thing for them, because it did seem like a pillow fight basically with their arguments, and obviously again, Bennett not exactly displaying anything that would make you think he's anything but to being condescending still. So I think that did feel a bit forced. Maybe
for a future episode, we can have both of them on at the same time, have a bit of a round table, and see where that goes. I mean, that would be a ratings bonanza.
Well, maybe we'll call it Noah's Mark.
You tried, you put it out there, but
you want me to just leave right now, or
no. Another thing, we mentioned Ed, and the Ed and Uncle Chris Harrison meet up, if you will, at 2:30 in the morning. We spoke about it with Blake a little earlier in the episode. That was one of the highlights of the Men Tell All, the guys talking about that too.
And as he mentioned to Blake in the interview, as I thought as well, it came across on TV that Ed was just the funniest guy. Like, I guarantee you, unless he's found love, of course, he's going to be on Bachelor in Paradise, because he was just really, really funny. He had a bunch of great one-liners and stuff like that, and I thought he was hilarious, and I definitely enjoyed Ed. By the way, this happened with Ed, happened with Blake, happened with Bennett, happens with everyone. I can't believe I didn't ask Blake about this, and I'm upset with myself, Adam. I apologize to you. I apologize to our viewers. I apologize to Bachelor Nation. I apologize to everyone for not asking.
You apologize to the Bros Ceremony Nation.
Yes, exactly. I don't know if you guys have noticed this, you guys that are watching, but it's not just this show as well. It's even scripted TV shows. So when Blake left, he's upset. He's in the car, and they drive away, and he's giving his commentary. No seatbelt. Didn't wear a seatbelt. And it's just like, it was him. Like I said, it was him. It was Bennett. It was everyone who left the show. No seatbelt. It's like, how far are they driving here? Like, I don't want them to get into an accident or whatever. But it's even more stark in like scripted TV shows. Obviously, when they're driving, they're not actually driving. It's stationary or whatever. But they make it seem like it with green screen. But it's like, in that show, nobody wears a seatbelt. Did you notice that at all? It's like, it's right there. It's right in front of you. How? No seatbelts. Someone wear a seatbelt, please.
That is why you are the Bachelor expert. I've never noticed that. But I mean, now thinking back, it makes sense.
Time it happens. It's unbelievable. It's so obvious when you see it. Now that you've seen it, or now that I've mentioned it, you'll notice it every single time ever going forward. I'm
looking forward to seeing the next episode, because that's the first thing I'm going to notice. We're discussing the Men Tell All.
It's just like it's. Okay, does no one value their life? Apparently, I guess if they lose the show, they're just like, oh, I don't really care anymore. It's over. I don't know. It's weird.
It's a fascinating thing. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the next episode when the next guy gets let go and sent home. We're discussing the Men Tell All here on the Bros Ceremony podcast. Adam Scully alongside Michael the Hound Dog Harrison.
Let's talk about
what's that? Sorry?
Let's talk about Yosef from the Men Tell
All. I'm
sorry, Adam.
No, let's talk about him though, because where to begin? What an idiot. I don't know what to say. He's like, how can you be that dumb? Even when Uncle Chris Harrison says, I'm going to give you the opportunity to apologize, he's like, no, I'm good.
I'm all for good TV. I love when people are characters, or they're out there, or they do controversial things, within reason, of course. That was too far, where he called it Claire. And he wasn't even participating in the game at all. And it wasn't like she demanded all those guys strip naked for the strip. I keep wanting to think of strip poker, the strip volleyball game. But it's like he wasn't involved. It makes me, of course, think that he's just trying to be a character. Like maybe like he's going to be involved with some other stuff, just based on because he didn't apologize. I guess in some small shred of me has to respect him. I guess for sticking to his guns. Some small part of me. I mean, I don't mean a large part of me. Like for actually sticking to his guns, but it did seem weird, and obviously it seemed like none of the guys respected him. Like I said, I love crazy antics and stuff that go, that pushes the envelope, that was a little bit too far, calling Claire classless and the oldest Bachelorette, and basically I would have expected way more from you and all this stuff. It was over the top.
Yeah, certainly over the top. And I mean, wish him the best in the future. I doubt we'll see him on the Bachelor series again, on Paradise or any of the other Bachelor style of shows, theme of shows. But I guess moving on, we spoke about this a little earlier in the episode. I'd say before 2 or 3 commercial breaks, bloopers are coming up soon. Bloopers are coming up soon. Bloopers are going to be great. And it was 90 seconds, and it was
Ooh, you didn't
thoughts?
I mean, to be honest with you, I would say they're not much different than usual, which where there's maybe 2 or 3 of them that were decently okay, and the rest were just like, her Tayshia getting her dress caught in the door.
That was funny.
I do remember it ended on Claire, I think, and it was something where I was like, that was the ending? I do remember thinking that. I can't exactly remember what the ending of
she was eating a lot.
Oh, yeah. No, that was actually pretty, but there's a very, very final shot. It was something, I can't remember, but maybe she dropped something or whatever. I can't remember, but I was like, that's kind of a weak for the last shot. I guess working in television, you and I, we're such television professionals that we have such we're such critiques. So maybe the audience loved the bloopers, but we did not like them as much.
Yeah, I mean, not great, but like we mentioned earlier in the podcast with Blake, he gave us a behind the scenes blooper of what happened in the pool with the football. Awesome story. Wish that made it to air, but I guess we'll always have that on the Bros Ceremony podcast, an exclusive that we heard right here on the Bros Ceremony. So that any other final thoughts, closing thoughts on the Men Tell All on Monday's episode?
Like you said, I was just surprised that for the most part, other than Noah and Bennett, there wasn't a whole lot of drama really. Some people were telling me, "Oh, it's really boring." Obviously it's filler. I'm not saying it's not, but like I said, I do believe that when the audience is there, and of course they're told to I've been to The Social, by the way, a TV show. I don't know if you've been there 3 times. I've only ever watched the show when I've been in the audience for that show.
Right.
Hilarious show. Yeah, you got to go to it just for when it's back, or maybe it's on. I have no idea. But you have to go there when everyone's allowed to, because it's just so funny. There's a guy who's a hype guy, and he gets everyone fired up or whatever. So he's like, everyone cheer it or everyone boo it. So in those audiences for the Men Tell All, I'm sure the same type of person who's trying to get them all fired up or whatever. So for there being no real responses to stuff, I was just kind of like, okay, this is kind of weird. And then when things got good, then Uncle's like, no, guys, we got to go commercial break. It's like, no, this is actually getting good here. So, it was just a bunch of men, as usual, just yelling at each other, and it was just like, okay, this is so juvenile.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Yeah, it is what it is. I'm glad it wasn't the full 2 hours. That would have been way too long. It was probably about 45 to 50 minutes or so of TV time with 3 or 4 segments. But But then, so that's Monday. That was the first leg of the doubleheader. We go to Tuesday, the hometowns. And as we mentioned earlier in the episode, cool that some of the family members were there on location. Still kind of weird. I thought it was going to be something like this over Zoom. What do you think?
The one takeaway that I thought the most, which was weird, was Ivan's father was there. They said he'd, thank goodness, defeated cancer twice, had a heart attack, a high risk for COVID, and he was there. I was just like, wait, what? Why? Why couldn't he be there via, like you said, via Zoom or something? If you really want, I understand him wanting to see, his son's potential lover in Tayshia, but that was the weirdest takeaway in terms of all the family members to me. It's like, why is he there right now? That was strange for me.
That was really strange for sure. Some really nice moments sprinkled in throughout the hometowns. We'll touch on those briefly, but one thing I noticed that I've noticed throughout the years, I'm sure many of our viewers have noticed as well, with each of the hometowns, one of the family members is assigned to say, can we go talk alone? Can we go talk alone? How do you think that shakes down? Is it a producer or Uncle Harrison go up and say, hey, Uncle Billy, pull Tayshia aside here? How do you think that goes down?
They literally have a stick, and he just pokes them and prods them. All right, here we go. We need some content here. Let's go, guys. Let's go. And yeah, that was pretty good. if memory serves me right, the first date of those 4 gentlemen was Brendan.
Correct.
Am I correct on that?
Yep.
This might be a controversial comment that I'm going to say here that people may not like. I'm not sure. Brendan is a robot. No? Like, everything he says, he's like, yeah, I really am enjoying my time here. It's really good. Tayshia's great. Like, I feel like everything he says, it just feels, and maybe it dovetails a little bit with him, because we've seen in previews him being scared about proposing at the end. Maybe dovetails with him not fully being invested in her. Like, maybe at the end he doesn't win this whole, or win, whatever you want to call it, this whole competition, because it just feels to me anyway that he's putting it on a little bit. That he's not fully invested. His walls aren't fully down. He's not fully vulnerable, as Tayshia would say. Vulnerable. She said it like 4 more times. She said like 4 more times this episode's vulnerable. It's vulnerable.
We should have asked Blake. How does that happen? How does that shake down?
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
I mean,
Brendan, for some reason, to me, Brendan, no bueno.
I mean, like, but he can dance like that. He has swagger. He has rhythm. And I know you and I have no rhythm at all.
Whoa. So Adam, I'm glad you said I have a pen here. I'm gonna, this is like a, it's almost like I'm like
a telestrator. Are you gonna draw on the screen?
Telestrator, sorry. But no, that was one of my points actually. I wrote about him dancing, and I was gonna ask then to you, what are your dance moves? So you're saying they're terrible?
Okay, so I have the robot, I have the lunge, I have the shopping cart. I split a pair of pants doing the lunge at a bar. This was about 5 or 6 years ago.
Demonstrate any of these dances right now for us, please.
I would, but I have my seatbelt on here, so I actually can't. Now, having said that, if a couple of waters are consumed, then I can't quite do the Phil Mickelson worm. But how about you? What do you have in the arsenal?
Yeah, it's funny. Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because for me at weddings, it's hilarious when I'm at those, and people are like, "Hey man, let's dance" or whatever, and I'm like, "No, not a chance in hell, no way." And then I'll be like, "No, just wait like an hour and a half. Like I'll get a few more waters in me, then I'll be good to go to dance." And then they're like, "Oh yeah, of course, no chance, right?" And then it's like a movie scene. It cut 2 hours later, 90 minutes later, and I'm the one leading the dance floor. I'm like, oh, yeah, let's go. And I'm dancing like crazy. Obviously, I'm sure in my mind, I think I'm amazing. I'm sure I'm horrible. But it's just always funny to me at weddings where I'm like, no chance at like 8:30. Like, no chance. And by like 10:30, oh, baby, I am good to go. Have you done that for yourself?
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, I don't quite have the Brendan, like this thing or the the sprinkler, that move.
Pretty good to me.
That was pretty good, actually. Yeah, maybe I have a future here. And if any of our viewers or fans of the Bros Ceremony Nation want to offer us rhythm lessons, some dance lessons, reach out. Follow us on Instagram at Bros Ceremony. Follow us on Twitter at Bros Ceremony Pod. Subscribe to us on Instagram, and you can teach us some rhythm.
Plug. That was tremendous, Adam. That was on point.
Okay, so Brendan's date. Pretty good day. We go to Zach, and Zach, he obviously has quite the backstory. He creates this New York style date. It was pretty cool. But then they go into the fountain, and there have been some makeouts on the Bachelorette and the Bachelor throughout the many moons of the show. But holy. That was something.
Are you okay? Are you going to be? Do you need a moment right now, or are you okay? Are you sure?
This would be a good time for a sponsor read in there, but we're not quite there yet.
For Kleenex or something, yeah. No, it was that was pretty steamy or whatever. It did seem a little bit forced as well, though. It was just like it felt like they wanted to be sexy. But then it was just like, this is such an awkward thing, like to actually be doing this right now, especially with the cameras around. It didn't quite catch me, but it did feel like one of those things where it sounded cooler at the time before they did it, and then when they actually did it, it was like, it wasn't bad. But
one other thing I noticed from that date with Zach throughout the season, he's sort of been the silver fox. He's got a lot of grays going on, which is fine, which is great. But did he not like dye his hair for this episode? It seemed pretty dark.
Oh, that's for someone who loves to observe these things on this show. You're saying you think he dyed his hair for this episode?
It looked darker than it was in the previous episodes. I must say.
I did not notice that at all. But the one thing I did notice about Zach was when his parents were there. My initial thought was, because of course, like I said to you earlier, for the most part, there was no drama with the family members. I was expecting that. I thought initially, I'm like, oh, the parents, they seem like they're going to be like, slave drivers. They're going to be like, big time jerks. And then by the end of it, I'm like, I want to drown a bunch of beers with Zach's mom. Did you not get that impression?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the way she was gushing over Uncle Chris Harrison, too. And then they showed the thing after the episode when he came in and she's, oh, my God, so happy to see you.
I thought she was hilarious. Yeah, the parents seemed totally cool. So it's funny how that worked out. But, remember how I think we were talking about last episode, I said, how many times do things in the preview actually come to fruition in the actual episode because they're very good at cutting things together to make it seem like it was crazier. And oftentimes the stuff that they would show in the preview, there's like, it would be similar to the clip, but then it would be like something would be said like 5 seconds earlier. And then it would be like, oh, that's actually in the preview, they reversed it. So it was like, do I love you? Yes, I do, or something. But it would be in reverse. And it was like, so the actuality was like, oh, that's not actually that, inflammatory of a remark, but the preview, of course, made it seem like it was the craziest thing ever, including, I'm sure we'll get to him in a second, Ben. Ben was the one that I really thought in the preview they really built up, and then in the end, it was like it wasn't as crazy as the preview would make it seem.
Yeah, for sure. We'll get to Ben momentarily. Ivan was the next hometown date. They did some cooking together in the kitchen. Met the father. We mentioned the father earlier on, and he talked at length about how his brother was a role model, spent some time in jail, unfortunately. And of course, the brilliance of the Bachelor series, the brother just sort of walks out and surprises him. That was a pretty nice moment.
Yeah, that was pretty good. And I couldn't remember, or I've forgotten that he talked about him being in jail like a few episodes earlier, I guess. So, no, it was really cool. I actually thought his brother looked older than him, though. Did you not think that? I thought Ivan was the younger brother.
Yep. Yeah, I could agree.
That was pretty good, but I do like Ivan. He seemed like a nice guy. But in terms of winning, I just feel like they all seem like kind of flawed, maybe. Like, he also feels a little bit too polished or something like that or whatever. And Zach seems a little bit rough around the edges potentially. And then who's the third one now?
Brendan.
Right, of course, yeah, the robot, like I said. So I feel like unlike other seasons of the show, there's usually like either like a super obvious favorite who never wins, usually.
Yeah.
Well,
he won, yeah.
Or like, there's someone else where it's just like, okay, they probably win. This one, I mean, it's probably revisionist history, but I feel like it's one of those ones where it's like they can all win. There's no clear winner of the final three.
So before we discuss the final three in in-depth detail for tonight's part one of the 2-part finale, Ben did have his hometown date. And I'm not sure if you noticed this or saw this on social media. So obviously his sister was there, and also another family friend who was actually a chef on the Food Network, Antonia LaFaso. That was the other woman there. Oh. She's a chef on the Food Network, which I thought was pretty cool.
How old was she? Because I thought like she looked close to his age. I'm like, could they be dating maybe? I don't know.
Wow, that would have been a spicy hot take if he brought his current girlfriend to hometown dates on The Bachelorette. That would have been a hot take.
I don't know. It's just like they seem to really obviously get along pretty well. She didn't seem that much older than him. And she was. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Mm-hmm. I was kind of thinking,
Yeah. But then, of course, Ben tells Antonia, the family friend, that he's in love with Tayshia. He's in love with her. And then as the rose ceremony, or before the rose ceremony, Tayshia and Ben had the moment where they were sort of together, and he sort of collapsed.
Jokes.
Yeah, basically. He's Jean Van de Velde in 99, basically.
Yeah, basically. Oh, my God. If you want to go back, you're a golf fan. 1999, listen to Peter Allison. Commentary of Jean Van de Velde choking away that Open Championship with a triple bogey on the last hole. I called that, by the way, to my buddies. I'm like, I've seen this guy in the European Tour, Van de Velde. He chokes at the end every single time. That's besides the point. But now I've lost my train of thought. But
you're talking about Ben, he couldn't pull the trigger on the "I love you" to Tayshia.
Yeah. At what point do you think Ben realized it wasn't in the cards for him? I always wonder about people like him or who want to be maybe the Bachelor the next time. I know the next one I think is Matt. But what point does he go, I'm probably not going to win this game. Let me make it as dramatic of a story that's, heartbreaking. That's sort of like, everyone's going, oh my God, Ben, you almost had her, but you didn't say you love her. I wonder how much of it is him basically putting that on, knowing he probably was toast, or saying it afterwards to make him look even more lovable.
Ooh, I didn't think of that. It's possible. He had the line where doing an interview, he said, or on the show, doing an interview one-on-one with one of the producers saying, oh, Ben, classic Ben, blew it again. And then obviously before the rose ceremony, Uncle Harrison was welcoming the guys in, handshake, hug, how was the week, yada, yada, yada. And for Ben, he said, yeah, I love her. And he never told Tayshia that. And unfortunately, it was a case of too little, too late for Ben.
But again, this is another situation of, because I watched the preview for this episode, like the one of last week, if you were an eagle eye, which of course I am, man, they showed a shot of Brendan, like looking at wedding bands or whatever with Tayshia. So when it came down to Brendan and Ben in the final two of the rose ceremony, I'm like, well, clearly it's Ben. Sorry, that's gone, because we already saw Brendan with a different scene that we haven't seen before. I feel like, unlike any other season, and maybe I'm wrong on that, I probably am, that they've spoiled more this season than they ever have before, which is it was just disappointing. And of course, as I always love to mention about Chris Harrison, Uncle, my boy, I just love whenever he comes in for that, like, gentlemen, it's the last rose tonight. Again, as I always say, you don't need to spell it out, Chris. We see there's one rose left. But what I also love that he does, he goes, gentlemen, this is the final rose tonight. Like, he's just so distraught. Even though he's done the show for 1 million seasons, he's just so upset.
No. Here it is. Gentlemen, Tayshia, this is the final rose tonight. When you're ready.
No, but you missed the sigh. You didn't do the sigh.
I missed the sigh. You're right. Yes. We'll have to have, when he joins the podcast, we'll have to essentially give it to us.
It's just it's amazing. It's just so good. And he is really good because he makes it seem like it's sort of like with Jeff Probst on Survivor. He'll say lines that show that you haven't watched enough of because you're an idiot. Am I sorry? No, I'm not sorry on that one. Yeah, they'll say the same lines over and over, but you swear they said them for the first time because they're just so professional and they're so solid. So yeah, Chris will say the same things over and over, and you swore he just said it for the first time. He's fantastic. You want to come on the podcast?
That's the open invite, Uncle Chris Harrison. If you're watching, which you obviously are, we would love to have you on the podcast for our Christmas edition of the Bros Ceremony podcast. Now, before we end off this episode 3, you are a writer for sportsbettingdime.com. We mentioned a little earlier how there are 3 guys left: Zach, Ivan, Brendan. You said sort of, you don't really see a fit. I don't know. But if you were to grade or pick a favorite at this point, who would it be?
Because it's such a wide open call, in my opinion, I don't want to spoil too much going into this episode on Monday. But again, there was another scene that they showed in a preview which shows something that the viewers wouldn't know beforehand if you hadn't spotted it, which leads a little bit to being like, oh, okay, that could totally change things up. That's all I'll say. What I'm trying to say without saying anything fully is that foul plays afoot, and there's something going to go on that's in this episode, which that's a tremendous spoiler. Something's going to go on in this episode. Cool, man.
Sick analysis. Really good, man. I
know. I'm trying to be as vague as possible because I don't want to spoil anything, but some twists will happen, I think. But in terms of the 3 guys left on the show right now, I think you'd have to go with Ivan. I think of the 3 of those guys, Brendan, like I said, just seems like a robot, and Zach, I feel that she thinks there's too many question marks with him. Though he seemed like a really nice guy, I would say I think Ivan is probably the best bet of the 3 guys left. Your thoughts?
So you say Ivan. To me, it is Zach because she told Zach that she's falling in love with him. And this was a couple episodes ago now. So in my opinion, I think Zach is the favorite. Brendan's the wild card. Brendan Patrick Mahomes. He is the wild card. It seems like they have great chemistry. Obviously, Tayshia got along really well with his niece and his family, who was there with him in on set, I guess you could say, shooting. But I guess only time will tell. The episode gets underway tonight at 8 Eastern.
That's sick analysis, Adam. Time will tell.
Time will tell. We will find out. And it's another Bachelorette doubleheader tonight and tomorrow. They'll wrap this thing up. I'm sure the way they'll do it, at least the way they've done it in the past, after the first, I guess, fantasy suites.
Oh, I didn't even thought. We haven't talked about fantasy suites.
We haven't discussed. I was going to say whoever's eliminated first, they'll sit them down in like some sort of stage thing, like they did with the Men Tell All or Claire and Dale. Where they'll have some sort of debrief with Tayshia and whoever loses first. But fantasy suites, it's a big episode.
It just sounds so funny and like corny and like seedy, I guess is the word I want to say. Fantasy suites. It's just hilarious. And Tayshia, as Blake mentioned, she was been seamless this whole season. Like she really has been outstanding. I feel it. I don't think this would have worked with other Bachelorettes. I think she's really, really been good and interesting and fun. But yeah, now that she has to go to those fantasy suites, things are obviously getting real now, and I'm curious to see what she will do with that. If she'll follow her love on that. Again, the whole premise of the show is hilarious, and of course we love it. But like, say she likes all three men, and whoever she ends up picking, good for her if she's going to do this, by the way. But like, it's just funny to me on these fantasy suites where like they're probably going to bang. She's going to bang three guys.
Make love, actually.
I apologize. Make love to three guys. I sincerely apologize. And then it's like, oh no, actually two of you guys bye. It's just funny to me, the whole concept of the show at the end, because there's such pressure on them to do it. It's like most of the time, except for who's the woman who in the windmill?
Hannah B.
Yeah, fantastic. It's hilarious that she did that with that guy. Like,
4 times. Pete. He was the Bachelor last season.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Peter. He just got engaged.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, Peter. Yeah. But yeah, there's such pressure. Once you get to that point, you need to do it almost, or else it's like, oh, that's really weird. The show is just so funny with the way they do these things where that's looked upon as like bizarre or bad or weird if you don't do that. But in theory, if you do love someone and you have 3 people, you might not want to sleep with the other 2 people. But the show makes it seem like you're crazy if you don't sleep with all 3. It's a very weird dichotomy. Good word.
It is strange, but it's private time. The cameras aren't there. The thing that's always funniest to me before we wrap up here is when they wake up together. And I mean, like, I don't know about you, but like when I wake up, it's not a pretty sight. But they wake up and like, it's like, you disagree?
That's a load of crap.
Oh, okay.
Don't try to be modest. Get out of here. Like, look at you. Shut up. I apologize for interrupting. Keep going.
I was gonna say, like, they're still sort of dolled up when they wake up, and it seems it is what it is. But that's why we love this. Now, I must give you a bit of a prop bet here.
Okay.
An over under.
Mm-hmm.
How many times are we going to see Neil Lane throughout these 2 episodes? The over under I'm setting is 2.5.
Ooh, interesting. Okay, well, knowing the one scene I already talked about, which we saw when I was like, oh, I knew Brendan was staying over Ben because they showed him in like the last week's preview. So I know for sure we see him once in the preview. 100% we see him once. So obviously you're at least going to see him once. So given that it's 2.5, I'm going to go over 2.5. Guaranteed over 2.5.
A guarantee over 2.5. Put
you already
all
have
your
one
chips.
for sure, unless of course Brendan is the winner, which he could be. I think we're going over.
I like that. I think I'm going to agree with you. It's not great podcasting, but I'm going to agree with you. We're going to see
hilarious like zoom in shots of like the the ring with the company and everything like that.
Yeah.
And I love the hilarious product placement, but they try to make it seem like it's normal, but it's obviously product placement. I love that.
Now, I've said before we let you go about 11 times now, but there's something I saw on Instagram earlier this week that I wanted to bring up earlier in the podcast, and that was what would have been a fun drinking game for those who drink while watching The Bachelorette, which I'm sure no one does, obviously. It's a drinking game for the men tell all and hometowns. I want to credit bachelor.realItea, realty, if you will.
Can I play this drinking game whilst drinking my water right now?
I think you should. So in the men tell all, for those who maybe haven't seen the episode or have it on PVR still and want to watch it again over the holiday season, if everyone's in lockdown, depending whether you're listening to us in Toronto or New York or Sweden or Germany, wherever you're watching us, maybe you want to watch the episode again. Where, sorry?
Arnprior.
Or Arnprior, that's right. Yes, our hundreds of thousands of fans in the Arnprior region. Here's a bit of a drinking game. Okay. So we'll start with the men tell all. Take one drink when any of the following happens. A contestant gets a hot seat. The guys turn on Yosef.
Hot seats? I think there might have been only, two?
I think it was Riley and Yosef, I guess, right?
Yes, two. Yeah.
The guys turn on Yosef, so you'd be obliterated. Chris Harrison has to calm everyone down.
That's once, maybe twice, yeah.
Here's a big one. We see men without socks or men wearing sneakers with a suit. Good night.
I brought that up last episode. Now that's part of the drinking. Because they watched our podcast, and we brought that up last episode, and now that's why that's part of the drinking game.
And the final one of the men tell all, we get a blooper reel.
Yes, of course. That's a classic. Yeah.
And then quickly before we go, hometowns, drink when there's a skeptical parent. Contestants have a heart-to-heart with a family member. Mm-hmm. We hear, quote, I'm falling in love with you, or I'm in love with you. And lastly, someone reminds us what city or state they're from.
That's an interesting one. By the way, I hope you keep saying final question to me about 18 more times. Sincerely, I do. And this, everyone's like, okay, they're finally done, these guys. And the podcast goes for like 13 hours. I would love that.
Well, we have doubled our longest episode here. So we're just going to keep going. We're just going to keep talking. But we are just about 3 episodes in. Mm-hmm. I promise this time. Before we sign off, Hound Dog, not only are you a writer on sportsbettingdime.com, you're also the host of the H-Dog pod. Give us a little teaser or a preview of your next episode.
Yeah, I recorded episode 49 today with my buddy Mark Reeser, and we talked about why the hell the NHL is taking so long to get things done. The NBA, I thought you had breaking news there for me for a second.
I mean, so we're recording this. Apparently, they're coming back. There's an agreement. It's happened.
Right. Yeah. Well, yeah, but you're right. But I feel like the apparently thing's been for a month now. But right. Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, we talked about how hey, come on, what's going on with that compared to the NBA, which was it was in 5 minutes. It seemed like it was over with.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we talked about that, and I also joked about how it's one episode from my milestone 50th episode, which
that's right.
Of course, milestones are so cool, but that one I will admit is kind of neat. That even though milestones are stupid and they're dumb, I guess episode 50 is pretty neat. But yeah, I had him on, and we had regaled some tales of our past years, which were fascinating.
Looking forward to watching that. You can subscribe to the H-Dog pod and listen to anywhere where you find your favorite podcast. Of course, the Bros Ceremony. We release episodes every Monday on YouTube. Follow us on Instagram at Bros Ceremony. Follow us on Twitter at Bros Ceremony Pod. Our followers are climbing up on Twitter and Instagram now, that's for sure. Yeah. And, of course, subscribe to us on YouTube where you can find these episodes every Monday. Another doubleheader tonight and tomorrow. They'll wrap it all up. We'll find out who Tayshia is in love with. Is she going to find love? Is she going to walk away with someone? We will find out starting tonight, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And who knows? We'll see where Tayshia's heart leads her. And Hound Dog, next week we'll have a full recap of the wild season that was with Tayshia and Claire.
Cannot wait. It's been honestly one of the best seasons in quite some time. So I cannot wait to go in intricate detail with you for 14 hours about it.
I want to thank Blake Moynes again for coming on the episode with Hound Dog and I. Thanks to Blake for coming on, and thanks to those who helped us set up that interview. For Hound Dog Harrison, I'm Adam Scully. This has been episode 3 of the Bros Ceremony podcast. We'll see you next week right here on the Bros Ceremony.